Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 28. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being here with us this Friday, Steelers Nation. Dave Bryan, how you doing?
Looks like we're going to have a game, so I'm doing good. Kind of a, not only did the Steelers get an unplanned bye, we got one as well, too. So, I guess it was nice a little early in the season for us to have one there. But obviously now looking to get back into flow here and looking forward to covering what should be a pretty decent game on Sunday between the Philadelphia Eagles and Pittsburgh Steelers.
And Marquise Pouncey had a funny quote when asked about playing 13 straight. Let me go ahead and try to find it. He said, quote, "I'm too American to be afraid of playing 13 consecutive games." So, red, white, and blue Marquise Pouncey. All right, Dave. Before we get heavy into the Steelers talk, we do at least want to start with the NFL situation. And unfortunately, we're talking about rescheduling and how the NFL is trying to deal with positive tests and whatever you want to call what's going on with Tennessee. The report is, at least today, as of this recording, a little after 10 a.m. There's been no new positive tests for the Tennessee Titans, which is, of course, good news. Their game is currently being scheduled to play Tuesday. It'll be only the second Tuesday game since the 1970 merger, and so that's created a domino effect for the rest of the schedule. I think the Bills are getting pushed back from a Thursday night to a Sunday game against the Chiefs, so NFL just trying to fly by the seat of their pants and figure this thing out.
Yeah, and it's not shocking, right? I mean, I know a lot of Steeler fans are still upset about this and all, and I guess it's a perfect time to get into what the Titans are being accused and having picture proof of. I think on the 30th they at least one workout with maybe some offensive players outside the facility after some of the tests had started, and people will say, well, boy, the Titans are just asking for a forfeit there. Once again, I think it's important to look at the timeline associated with this. You know, the Steelers game, I think, got canceled the very next day on, what was that, Thursday the 1st, correct? And then it was on into the next week when the memo came out, says, you know, the huge hand-slapping memo saying, you know, this kind of stuff, breaking protocol can lead to forfeitures. So I think if you look at the context of that timeline and all, and it's been part of my argument all along. People think that I'm siding with the Titans here, that I'm siding with the Titans, thinking, oh, they don't, you know, they don't need to suffer a forfeit. Well, A, I don't think they should, and B, people say, well, you're defending them. No, I'm defending the process and what I think is going to happen. My job at what I do, and yours as well, you know, with the site and with the podcast, is to try to be as objective as possible and try to be predictive and speculatory in the correct fashion as many times as possible as we possibly can here. And right from the get-go, I've always said, especially with this situation here, you got to look at the facts, you got to look at the trail of money, you got to look at history. The NFL's never suffered a forfeit in their 100-year history of this league, and they're not just going to start handing these out like some old lady at Sam's Club with a sample counter. You know, it's just not going to happen. Now, was it absolutely stupid on the part of the Titans to do what they did? Yeah, it was, and I think you would agree with this. I think after the investigations all come out and how maybe they didn't follow protocol to the T, even leading up to that September 30th practice or any practice that may have taken place unauthorized after that. There's probably going to be, and there should be, a huge hand slap. There should probably be, I don't know, a suspension or 3. There should be fines, coming out the yin yang. Draft picks are even at this point are possibly on the table, depending on this timeline. Okay, but to still sit here and, as a Steelers fan, demand that a forfeit takes place, I think, once again, it's foolish, Alex. And people don't want to start off the podcast with us talking about this, but there's so many layers to this moving forward, and there's going to be other positive tests. And heck, even the Jets, I think, were sent home this morning because of one of presumptive tests. So, you went into this just having to know that at some point there was going to be issues with this thing, whether they be self-inflicted or not, and you're just going to have to kind of navigate the way around it. And I think that's exactly what the NFL is doing. And it goes back to money. You want to easily read the tea leaves. What I've learned over the course of my life: follow the trail of money. And the NFL, they stand to lose games. That's money. The networks stand to lose games. That's money. And the last thing the owners and the networks want to do is lose money. So they're going to do everything in their power to avoid any kind of forfeitures or anything of that nature. I'm getting off my soapbox now.
Money talks, and not only for the owners and the league, but the players as well. Because my understanding was the report was if there's a forfeit, the players don't get paid. Now, I think there'd be a way to stipulate the players should still get paid because they would deserve to get paid, at least the opposing team. But there's that element to worry about as well. So, yeah, to broaden the conversation beyond Tennessee, because I agree a forfeit is very unlikely to be in play. But I think loss of draft picks, suspension, fines are going to be extremely heavy, maybe one of the most severe punishments ever from the NFL. I think that is squarely within the realm of possibility. But we're seeing positive tests with Oakland, or the Raiders, Las Vegas, I should say. First time I screwed that up this year. The Patriots, the Jets obviously getting sent home today. We're just seeing more and more these positive cases spike, and you just start to wonder about what are the odds the NFL really gets through this year by being able to play every single game. There are only so many pieces on the chessboard to make in football where you play one game a week and you can't play doubleheaders, and eventually it may come to a head where you have to either start adding extra weeks or coming up with some very difficult decisions to try to get through this season and not, trying to have this full speed ahead mentality for the NFL.
And people continue to say, oh, shame on the NFL for not having a plan in place and having that extra week and go ahead and shifting the Steelers to a week 18. And look, nobody knows what they have and don't have. I find it hard to imagine that a billion dollar, organization such as the NFL doesn't have, and we already talked about this. I bet Mike Tomlin knows more than what he's letting on being on the competition committee. They have, they just don't want to this early in the season probably get into, last measures, kind of situation there. And I'll say it once again. I've said it right from the get-go. It sucks. It sucks for the Steelers. I mean, and now it looks like it's about to suck for the Bills and maybe the Chiefs and kind of the trickle down or what all transpired with the Titans. It's absolutely horrible. The Titans should be punished. Anything outside of a forfeit is on the table with that. You just got to take the spoonful of sugar and let the medicine go down, though, and you've got to just move on with this thing. And people are out there hot taking the heck out of this, not knowing what indeed the plans down the road the NFL has. This is only week 5 of the season, and we're still continue to see what's happening with the Jets, and it's not going to be the last time. You're not in a bubble situation here, and quite honestly, people should probably be shocked that the league made it 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks into the season without having any sort of issues.
Right. The question is, do you think we'll see some of those last measures get unveiled out of necessity? Will it come to that point? Because it feels like it's trending quickly in that direction.
I wouldn't be surprised, Alex. I think there's several more hiccups in this thing to get over with. I won't be totally surprised if they try to go to some sort of makeshift hotel bubble or something like that. Everything in this unprecedented world right now, I think, is on the table with this. I just think there's more out there than what we know and what people know to criticize here. And once again, it goes back to it absolutely stinks. It stinks for the Steelers. It stinks for some of these teams. Yes, a big no-no for the Titans. Hopefully they'll learn from it. Hopefully this one hiccup will help prevent a few more minor ones. But when you're talking about 32 teams with as many players as they have on it in a non-bubble situation, players are going to test positive.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's really no avoiding that. And we'll see just how far down the rabbit hole the NFL has to go with trying to rearrange his schedule and keep things going. But what we do know, Steelers playing this Sunday against
I'm just more
Eagles.
tired of the crying about it. It is what it is. And yeah, I mean, I get Ben saying, yeah, we got the short end of the stick. Yeah, the Steelers got the short end of the stick. Nobody's going to argue with that. And I think Vance McDonald, in so many words said the same thing yesterday, but on the flip side, he said, look, you just got to move forward with this thing. And I think Pouncey, when he talked to the media this morning, had probably the best attitude out of all of it. Man, the milk's already spilled. Just clean it up and move on.
Yeah. So let's do the same, Dave. Let's move on from that conversation.
You trying to tell me what to do?
I'm just being a good podcast host, good air traffic control over here.
You are. You do a fine job.
Thank you. Yeah, but we'll keep you posted on any other NFL reschedules. I'm sure there may be more to come. But I do want to bring a bit of breaking news today that was announced this morning. Very unfortunate. Tunch Ilkin, who former Steelers offensive lineman and does color analyst for Steelers radio, announced he has been diagnosed with ALS. And so he has a video today. I haven't actually got a chance to watch it yet, but describing his situation, and certainly went on for thoughts and prayers, because I think Tunch does a tremendous job breaking down Steelers football.
Absolutely. And Tunch is just a good human altogether.
Yeah, so just want to pass that information along to you guys. All right, Dave, let's get into some of the media interviews that have taken place, some of the player interviews that happened over the last couple of days since we last talked. Vance McDonald spoke to the media yesterday, and this is a comment I guess Randy Fichtner made, but it kind of ties into Vance talking about his kind of not newfound, but definitely heightened blocking first attitude. And I think you mentioned this a while back, Dave, that Vance McDonald added some weight. It looked like he had gotten bigger during the offseason. And Randy Fichtner said that McDonald added around 10 pounds in the offseason in an effort to become a better and kind of more blocking first type tight end.
Yeah, and it was back on August, let's see here.
I should know that you had the receipts for this.
I keep receipts. August the 3rd, I put on Twitter, I put a picture of him. It was one of the early pictures, I think, that come out of training camp there. And I put that picture on Twitter, and the comment I have is, Vance looks like maybe he was on the hot beer yoga off-season program. Of course, making fun of that talk about Ben Roethlisberger being on the hot beer yoga off-season program. But it did look like to me this off-season that, and I think somewhere else I've got two other comments on the Twitter machine about looking like maybe he put a little on this off-season, and that indeed is the case. What did Randy say? 10, 11, 12 pounds. I don't know. Vance on the greater scale of that 12 pounds, I think, by the look of things. But I get it. I understand it. You go out and you spend money on the kind of tight end that Eric Ebron is. You look back, especially I think last season, and it's one of the things I noted about Vance McDonald, who I after his first season, I kind of noted that his blocking, especially on the move, was okay. I didn't care for his blocking as much last season, and then here we are, the Steelers trying to bulk Vance McDonald up for more blocking, I guess, situations, or make him a more physical player. And, okay, I get it. It all makes sense.
Yeah, I think we've definitely seen improvement as a blocker, at least compared to last year where he was abysmal. I don't think he was healthy. I think he was just gutting through a very difficult season with so many injuries at other positions. He didn't want to be another name on that list, and he's done well. And, everything that McDonald actually said during his interview yesterday was being very team first. He said, quote, "I consider myself just like a soldier, and I'm going to do whatever the coaches ask me to do." He flat out admitted that Ebron's a better receiving threat than he is, and his role is blocking. And he said he'd rather block all game than catch a single ball. So very team first, very a selfless mentality, and you have to appreciate that for a tight end to do that kind of dirty work.
Boy, he certainly is saying all the things that you would think of a guy on the Steelers that have been with the team 10, 11, 12 years, and obviously he hasn't been there that long, but I think he gets it. I mean, I think Vance gets the whole team aspect. I think he gets the Steelers organization. I think he's very honest and open when he does the interviews and all like that. As we've talked about him past this season, it's obviously going to be tough to warrant keeping him past this season. I mean, obviously, if he winds up being a great, a better blocker, maybe one of the league's better blocking tight ends this season, he'll help his value not only potentially staying, but maybe league-wide as well, at least trying to keep a job. And I'm not opposed to him staying past this season, maybe more around the minimum, obviously, than a lot less than what he's making now, especially he's not going to be a receiving tight end. But I think this all boils into how they're using these guys this year, and it makes sense, and he can still give you something in the passing game, I think. And I think we could potentially see a little of that, him putting all the spotlight off of him this week in that media session, and really talking up Eric Ebron and how he's excited to help Ebron learn this system quickly and schematics, and just gets a joy out of Eric catching the passes and Vance doing the blocking kind of thing. I don't know. He's one of those guys that might get lost in the shuffle here this week, and we could turn around. It could be Vance McDonald with 3 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown.
Sure, and as we'll talk about later in the show when we preview the Eagles, I think one of these tight ends, Ebron or McDonald, can really make some hay this week, because Eagles have struggled against tight ends through the first month of the season. So, yeah, bottom line is you need guys like Vance McDonald in an offense that has some pretty prolific weapons, and Juju, Deontay Johnson, what Ebron's going to offer you, an exciting rookie in Chase Claypool. You need some guys who know their role, do their role well, do it with a smile, and really embrace doing the stuff that will not show up on the stat sheet, like blocking, like constantly being the fourth option in the pass game, and working in a scramble drill, or digging out a defensive end or a safety, or whatever the case is. You have to really appreciate that for Vance McDonald, and definitely a good dude overall, good community guy, and definitely good in that locker room.
Do we want to touch now and kind of segue him talking about the motion and go that direction here, or no?
Yeah, let's do it. We know the Steelers certainly have the Matt Canada influence this year. I believe they rank 6th in motion through the first month of the season. There's definitely a strong correlation between motion teams that use a lot of motion and teams that are successful. Although for Pittsburgh, as you pointed out in a great study yesterday, the motion has not yet at least led to a lot of offensive success.
Well, let's go first with what Vance had to say about the motion. Do you have the quote there? I'm trying to pull it up here real quick.
I can pull it up here in a moment, but he definitely did touch on it, and what he was just overall feeling was he wanted to see more of it and then continue to incorporate that into the offense. Correct.
Here is his quote. He says, "Yeah, we talked briefly about he was asked about the ranking and the motion usage and how it ranks high league-wide, especially motion. Let's clarify once again, I'm glad we did before the start of the season, and Tom Mead's doing a fantastic job with this first year taking over the offensive charting from Matthew Marksey. He was asked about the high rate, and he says, yeah, we talked briefly about that, and he did. He talked, going back to, I think it was a Steelers Nation United call or something like that, or one of the several other maybe interviews that he's done preseason here, but Vance on Thursday said, yeah, we talked briefly about this, I think, in an interview I had talking about Matt Canada coming in and introducing a little bit of his philosophy into our scheme overall, and obviously I think the evidence is out there, McDonald said on Thursday. I didn't know we were 5th in the league. That's an interesting stat, but the evidence is out there. He goes on to talk about how motion at the snap of the football works, and how it influences. He says, I mean, as human beings and football players, especially defensively, we're reactionary, and vision has a lot to do with that. Reaction. It's the dominant sense, obviously, that they're using, especially at linebacker. And so not only are they lining their defense up, echoing and giving calls out, but they're having to watch all of this. And at the same time, all the film study and everything they do before going into that game all accounts for something that can distract them, something that can pull them away from their gap, even if it's a half a step. As the saying goes in football, a blade of grass is a blade of grass, and you can tell he's been around Tomlin, can't you? As the saying goes in football, a blade of grass is a blade of grass, and we need every one of them. And so the evidence is there, and that even if it's one snap out of 70 plays on average in a game, 65 for offense, that a defensive player is out of a gap, they're half a second slower to that responsibility. It's an edge for us, he goes on to say. And so I think, honestly, for me, my personal opinion, we'd like to do it even more. That's a matter of getting the play call into the huddle, getting up to the line of scrimmage, and having plenty of time of the play clock in order to carry out those movements and shifts. But I think it has been a good balance for us so far.
Yeah, and I think that the numbers you show, indicate that it hasn't been the most effective approach yet, but there is certainly a learning curve, especially for Big Ben. This is pretty new to him. I don't know the last time he's had motion like this before. Certainly his days in college were very different than the way college game looks today, but I like the principle of it. They'll keep incorporating it. That they had some more time to work on it with some of this time off this past week, and so I think it's certainly a useful tool in the tool belt, and as the numbers show, teams that generally use a lot of motion are among the better teams and better offenses in football.
Now, what you think? You probably already knew the answer to it going into it, but what did you think the stats would show when looking at the actual? Once again, these are plays with motion, with the player in motion at the snap of the football. Okay, what did you think? When you opened that post up yesterday that I wrote that you would see, in other words, did you get what you thought you would see?
Pretty much. I had a pretty strong feeling they hadn't been extremely successful at it. I think I'd mentioned that maybe 2 weeks into the year that it hadn't really felt like it was working. It actually did a short video that showed some of the things that it really wasn't influencing defenses yet. They need to actually use, throw it, that pass in the flat, or actually run that jet a little bit more to get defenses to respect that. But so I wasn't surprised by the data that you pulled that showed it hadn't really worked quite yet.
And in total, Tom has them. I have a feeling we might be missing a play or two here. We'll have to go back through. I might try to do that later on today, just double check some things, because this is all kind of new with us charting this, so a play or two might have been missed based, and I'm only saying that because our percentages of total plays. Here's the thing: I don't know what Seth Walder, if they're taking. You would think that the percentages would take out kneel downs, right?
Maybe, but yeah, I don't know exactly what their criteria is, and obviously some of this could be a little subjective based on what's who's moving on the snap and at set and all that. I mean, there could be a little bit of subjectivity to that.
Right. So we're obviously close. I think if there's any differential, it would probably be us maybe having 2 plays less, or we might be right on. It might be a little bit more. They might have termed a few things. Maybe an H-back shuffling just a little bit, maybe more so than we are. But we do also track the motion and then the player going stationary as well, too. And you want to talk about tedious work there. Kudos to once again to Tom Mead. So want to make sure we thank him. Tom has the Steelers down for 34 such plays through the team's first 3 games, with 28 of those being running plays and the other 6 being dropbacks. On the Steelers' 28 running plays so far this season, let's see, the total yardage gain was 80 yards, or I hate to use yards per carry, but 2.86 yards per carry. Just 12 of those 28, which is only 42.9%. That's the number I'm worried about. Were deemed successful plays, and that's not great at all. One of those plays was obviously the fumbled end around, which we labeled as an aborted play, but it is a running play, and it was designed to be a running play. Remember that one at the start of the season? What was it, second offensive play or first offensive play of the season? The end around of Deontay Johnson early in the Week 1 game against the Giants that he fell on for no gain there. The Steelers' longest run so far this season that included motion of a player at the time the football was snapped is 11 yards, and that was achieved twice by James Conner and Anthony McFarland Jr. Against the Texans. I've got both those runs. Those are perimeter runs, obviously, against the Texans. Nothing wrong with how those plays developed. I think you would agree with that. I have it broken down by personnel. Obviously, it's happened more with 11 personnel. Second most, I think, 16 plays with 11 personnel, 9 plays with 12 personnel, which would obviously be a running back and 2 tight ends on the field. Runs by down, obviously, majority of those on first down, 18 of the 28. Second down had 7 of them. Third, actually, they've been more successful on third and fourth down. They've had a total of 3 of those, and I think 2 of those have been successful runs for, I think, a grand total yardage gained of 3 yards. That's why you got to be careful when you use yards per carry, because it all depends on yardage needed. What about the 6 passing plays, Alex? Well, 6 total dropbacks that we've charted that include motion at the snap of the football. 4 of the 5 passes that were ultimately attempted were completed for 18 yards. That's just 3.6 yards per attempt. Just 3 of those 4 were successful plays. The other drop back resulted in a quarterback sack of Ben Roethlisberger. The timing of that play was just horrendous. I think maybe you've even pointed that out in a video of kind of the bad screen game, I think, if you will, in that aspect of it. So I think when you look at this in totality, Alex, and I guess the next question that I'll have off of this is, it's not good when you look at statistically this thing broken down through just 3 games. Now, obviously, it's not a large sample size. I think that's important to point out. I guess the second question, and I'll throw it to you, is the fact of, has this maybe helped impact other parts of the running game that have not had motion at the snap of the football?
Maybe, but I don't really have any evidence of that right now. I mean, I would just consider this motion, and yes, it has not been extremely successful yet, but just a work in progress and something this team needs to continue sticking with, because they just know analytically and based on what some of the best offenses in football do, and you want to try to emulate that to the best of your ability. All those teams incorporate motion. Baltimore, the 49ers, the Chiefs, etc. Not saying the Steelers have to do exactly what those teams do, but we know that motion works. We know it can be effective. And so whenever you lose spring work, you lose preseason, you get such an abridged training camp and summer program, obviously, and you're trying to incorporate this pretty new element to the offense. There's going to be growing pains. It was not going to be probably as clean and as efficient and work as well out of the gate as you would have hoped. But you got to stick with it, keep working out the kinks, and keep adding to it. And so I think that's got to be the mentality for this team, because it can be effective. We know it can be effective. And, just unfortunate, had you been able to install this stuff back in the spring during OTAs, I think you'd see more success now. But I think it's a concept that this team has to keep trying to go towards, and eventually it is going to work. Once again,
we're not getting on any of this. We just wanted to put the fact, it's a big topic of discussion, and
right.
and has been. So 3 games in, and with this being a bye week, it's a good time to look at the initial results. Okay, the results from I guess the positive is you've had a couple of nice runs out of this, okay? But the totality of it is it hasn't been good statistically, okay? Now, it is a small sample size. Do I expect it to get better? Yes, because of the whole things that you mentioned. This is new. The timing aspect of it, which I think we showed right out of from the get-go, not great on this, and just using it more. And you've got you've only got 1 game now of using some of your speed factors in it, being McFarland and McLeod, and overall, I think totality wise, that's not bad. I think the success rates were probably better totality-wise in that 1 game than it was the previous 2, right? With you having those weapons on there. I think what we're just trying to do is point out where they are now, okay? And I think it's a good line in the sand, at least a point of reference now, where we can look back in another 3 games, or heck, maybe even after this game against the Eagles on Sunday, and say, look, this is where they are now. But I think it has been, and I'm not defending it being bad. I'm not downplaying it being bad. I just think that it's 3 games in here with the kind of personnel and them trying to fill their way around, no preseason, no full training camp, yada yada. It's just basically a point of reference right now.
That's a good way to cage it, a point of reference. And I just think the key to it being more successful, other than just kind of continuing to rep it and get the feel and timing and everyone get more comfortable with it, is making sure it's not just window dressing, where you're utilizing that motion, where you're throwing it to those guys, you're adding different wrinkles, you're running the jets more. You have to actually use that and not just let it be eye candy to force defenses to respect it. And I think the Steelers have missed some of that so far. So I think it's something that can be improved, will be improved. And as you said, the data we have 3 games in will hopefully be a good way to compare it the next 3 games and the 3 games after that, and kind of chunk it that way to see if there is a progression.
I think a key element to that, and it probably is not overly surprising, is having the speed factor included in that. And against the Texans, we saw McFarland on the field with that. We saw McLeod on the field with that. Obviously, against the Texans, with Deontay Johnson getting knocked out, he would probably be the next guy on going down the list, right, as far as the potential speed and effectiveness of guys in motion that way. So I think, and that's dangerous to say, against the Eagles, I think you're going to see a little bit more of that. And I think one of the big X factors here is kind of twofold. I think it's McFarland and I think it's McLeod. I am just waiting to see. I'm just waiting to say I told you when it comes to them running a similar version of what they ran on what was it, a 7-yard or 11-yard gain, McFarland to the left-hand side of McLeod coming around in that orbit motion. Okay. The next time you see that, it might be the offense going the other direction. It might be a flip of the personnel, but you're going to see that ball handed to McLeod, I think. Little things like that. So I guess what I'm saying is, moving forward, yes, I want to even see more of it, but I want to see more of it with the speed elements on the field. And, oh, yeah, and I put this on Twitter too, I want to see them pass out of it more.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've been obviously able to run the ball to close out some of these games, so that certainly helped. But sure, you want to see it used in pass and run, and I think you will continue to see that going forward. So good numbers there, good data. Thank you, Tom, for his research and being able to help frame that for you. And we'll keep tracking that influence and the success of motion the rest of the season.
And generally, isn't it about 75% really league wide anyway is going to be runs?
I think the numbers did say they slanted towards more motion with run plays. Yeah.
All right, so
yeah, I don't know the exact number though.
It would be because of how few. Let's see, 6 out of 30 or 6 out of 30. What did I say? 38. 6 out of 36. I forgot my numbers already. What is that?
Around 15%.
Yeah, you'd like to maybe see. And maybe we will. Maybe I want to see the wheel off of that. You can even do something with with some misdirection. Pull the pull a guard in the wrong direction. Use that orbit motion with McLeod and just run McLeod on the wheel off of it.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that we're going to be celebrating something like that here in the next couple weeks.
I hope so, yeah. The principle is get that motion guy a lot more involved. Don't let him just be the window dressing and the eye candy. Actually get him involved, whether that's a run concept or a pass concept. Make him a focal point of plays for defenses to really respect that. And then I think it'll be a really effective part of this offense.
And that's a great point. It's so great. I wish I would have thought about that. I think it is. We talked about McFarland when getting him on the field. One of the key elements to that early was to put the football in his hands, right?
Right. I would love to know the number of how many times the motion player got the ball or received a target at least. How many times he actually touched the football?
League wide?
No, just for the Steelers. Well, league wide, but at least just for the Steelers, because I imagine it's not very high.
Well, I don't think we've seen that yet, right?
Like, for example, Deontay got it on his muff. But the number I'm betting is low, and so I would love to know that number, where it is now, to compare that for later in the season.
Right, and if you put it on tape a couple of times, even if it's a 3-yard gain, maybe that will help a little bit, and they saw it, they have to defend against it. It's in the back, in the back, and especially if you break one, man. If you do something with McLeod or McFarland in motion, and then that breaks, it's better to phrase it the way you just phrase it. Put the ball in the hand of the guy that's in motion a couple times now, and see what happens there, and at least garner the respect that player has to be watched now. Exactly.
Then I think your motion's going to be at its most effective. So we'll monitor it going forward, and we'll let you know the updated data. All right, Dave. We'll stick with Randy Fichtner, because he says something else he wants to not that this is new to the offense, but it is part of the offense that's not quite there yet. He said the deep ball. They're always working on trying to get the deep ball working, and it was pretty bad against the Texans. Big Ben was 0 for 6 on attempts from 20-plus yards, air yards down the field, and so that's something that Of course, Randy Fichtner wants to work on, so they worked on it during the week. And hopefully they get the deep ball going against the Philadelphia Eagles and that kind of beat up secondary.
Yeah, and PFF had a stat which wasn't surprising. The time to release for Roethlisberger is very low. He's getting the ball out quick. That's not surprising. I wrote about Roethlisberger in that dink and dunk offense, and that's not me using that negatively. Okay. I think one of the things that we learned during or one of the things that helped benefited Ben during the Todd Haley era was him taking less hits and getting the ball out quickly. In 2018, for as good a season as that was with Ben, he got the ball out of his hands quickly, and it would have been even a better statistical season overall had he been able to connect on the deep ball early in the season. Remember the whole Wi-Fi thing, and that actually got better second half of the season here. I think we both agree that Ben's been off on the deep ball, the timing, or for whatever reason. I'm not going to put it all on Ben, but
Sure.
for whatever reason, it hasn't hit yet. Now, yeah, you had the nice drop in the bucket to Claypool, so we know he can still get it out there. He came close on one. He probably should have hit to Washington in that game against the Texans there. But he's had a couple other ones that have been off target as well too. Explosive deep passes are part of the game that you have to have in order to have a successful offense. All right, so we need to start seeing this get better. More along the lines, I guess, about 40 to 45%. At a minimum connection rate on these things. I think the more that you see, the better your teams are maybe having to come up and play a little bit more, maybe cover one deep safety. Ben's just not going to go deep against to go deep, right? He's going to look for.
Sure.
He's not going to do it against cover 3 situations. He's not going to probably do it as much against quarter coverage situations. But if you give him some cover 2 and he's able to see it, ahead of time, or cover 1 type, he loves to do it the most against cover 1, and why wouldn't you? That kind of thing there. But I think this is one element now that could really make this offense a little less clunkier than it's been, is to connect a couple times down the field.
So where should that number be? You said around 40% in terms of hitting a deep ball?
At a minimum, I think 40%.
Okay, because he's at 21% right now,
Right.
3 of 14 on passes that traveled at least 20-plus yards and including 0 for 6 against the Texans.
Right.
So you want to see that pick up, and I think it will. And I think, a lot of this has to do with the young receivers, Ben shaking off his own rust, all those kind of obvious reasons. So hopefully it'll improve as the season goes along.
Right.
What else did Randy say? He didn't really say a whole lot. There weren't a lot of questions asked to either coordinator. It didn't feel like this week. But talking about Vance, talking about Ben, anything else from Randy Fichtner you want to touch on?
I'm trying to replay.
Or Keith Butler, if Keith Butler had anything that jumped out to you.
I don't remember anything jumping out at me unless you remember something.
Yeah, I think that was everything from Randy, to be honest. Butler just, again, talking up Alulu and the job that he's done. Remember, he's a former first-round pick, former 10th overall selection of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then just talking about trying to slow down and contain Carson Wentz and getting pressure on him. And Keith Butler, again, praised Alex Highsmith, saying, quote, he's a good worker. He's got a great attitude. He's a humble rookie. His teammates like him. He's hard not to like because when he came in here, he realized he had to get better. The level that he was playing at was different. He understands that, and he's adapted well. So Alex Highsmith seems to be impressing with that eagerness to learn and absorb the playbook and knowing that this is a long way from Charlotte.
All right, let's see. I'm trying to see if there's, just talking about containing, as you said, Wentz with his legs. We're going to be getting in, talking a little bit more about that. Talking about holding call. Yeah, I think we've covered the gamut on both those guys so far. Shall we talk a little bit about who's healthy right now and who's not?
Yeah, we should circle back to the injury report. The Steelers released their injury report yesterday, and pretty standard fare, except for one notable exception. T.J. Watt landed on the injury report, did not practice yesterday with a knee injury. Hopefully that's just a minor thing. Today will be a pretty important day to see if he gets back to work and how they designate him for Sunday's game. But that's certainly a name you do not want to see with a DNP label next, talking about T.J. Watt.
Yeah, a bit of a surprise for sure. look, he did an interview with. He was on Bud Brings a. What a great name for a podcast. Bud Brings a Buddy or something like that. But evidently they filmed something. And it looked like TJ had some sort of sleeve on the left leg and not one on the right leg. I don't know if that's normal for him for time of year, temperature, blah blah blah. I don't think, unless he doesn't practice today, I don't want to say, oh Lord, I'm worried about TJ, but I think probably bumped his knee is probably what happened, and probably just being a little bit of proactive there and giving him the day off, a little bit of rest. He'll probably work today, and here's the hope. He works today, and he's not even given a status update on the Friday injury report. I think that's best case scenario. Everybody else practice except for Derek Watt with a hamstring and Marcus Allen with the foot.
Linebacker Marcus Allen.
Oh, linebacker. Yeah. Did I put safety in front of it?
No, you didn't. But that was interesting because I knew you were wondering how they would designate Marcus Allen, linebacker, safety, and it's linebacker.
The things that I focus on, that the shiny objects that interest me sometime, I put that out there on Twitter the other day was. Call me crazy, but one of the things I'm most interested in is to see how Marcus Allen is actually listed positionally on the official injury report, and they did indeed have him listed as a linebacker. So
that was that bye week withdrawal you were going through. You needed some football.
Absolutely. So I think I guess Derek Watt could practice today and be given the green light, but normally this stuff doesn't work out well this way. And just to go rewind in your head what Mike Tomlin said before the bye about these two, I think smart money would be the bet that neither one of Marcus Allen or Derek Watt plays against the Eagles on Sunday, but I've been wrong on that before.
Yeah, not expecting Watt to play. Allen probably won't either. I still give Allen a slightly better chance than Watt. And so that brings and begs the question, does a Trey Edmonds get called up as one of the practice squad promotions? UG3 figures to get a hat this week, so we'll see if those guys can't go, what the corresponding moves are, what the domino effect is. But we'll see if they do a practice squad move and bring up Trey Edmonds for the first time this season.
What are your options, if you don't bring Edmonds up, but Watt is down, and that let's assume both Allen and Watt are down, all right? What are your options if you don't bring Edmonds up?
UG3 will obviously, I would assume, at least get a hat and be active on special teams. Gentry may as well, because you're wondering who the other inactives, who the other guys who'd get the hat if Watt and Allen are inactive, if Edmonds does not come up. So, yeah, UG3 and maybe Zach Gentry gets a hat for the first time this season.
I think that sounds right? Now that's if they don't bring Edmonds up. I would think you would want, because both these guys are Watt's obviously a core special teamer, and Allen's damn near close to it, right? So I think the odds are better that Edmonds comes up on game day.
Right. Although it was interesting, for whatever it's worth, they did not protect Edmonds, right. But Watt still seems like he's going to miss. Doesn't mean they can't bring up Edmonds, but just worth noting.
What is your best guess? That Edmonds comes up on Sunday, and then that they have how many inactives would that be? 6?
6, right? An extra spot there. Yeah, that's where I'm leaning right now. Again, I want to at least see today's injury report, of course, see where these guys are at. But that is kind of where I'm leaning towards right now.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on T.J. Watt, obviously, on this Friday. Deontay Johnson obviously cleared protocol and all, but he's on the injury report with a toe. That might be something that we have to get used to all season, as well there. So I think overall a healthy bunch, and all eyes will be on T.J. Watt on Friday. As far as the Eagles injury report goes, hard to make kind of heads and tails of it, and put it together with what Doug Peterson has said during the week. I think and to hear what the beat writers for the Eagles are saying, it sounds like they think they're going to get Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson back this week. Even though Jeffrey did not practice, I think that's more so of an illness on Thursday than it was his previous injury there. Deshaun Jackson has been limited 2 times or both days this week. I think those are the most. Lane Johnson at tackle. I think the hope is that that ankle of his will be ready to go, and Rodney McLeod, the safety, looks like he's going to be able to go by the weekend as well too. The guys that probably aren't going to go for them, Avonte Maddox, the Pitt product cornerback, would be the one I would think that's the most doubtful of everybody on their injury report right now. So I think the Eagles are healthier. Now they did have to put the linebacker and Rudy Ford, one of their better special teamers, on IR. So that's significant because they're not showing up on the injury report, but those are 2 big key losses for them this past week. But I think right now what's left on the injury report, Avonte Maddox would be the most notable, unlikely to play, but they're going to be a banged up bunch even if all those guys dress. And I think my biggest question is when it comes to a guy like Deshaun Jackson is can he open it up?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
He'll be on a snap count for sure, but he's going to play. Alshon Jeffrey's actually just been ruled out with a non-COVID illness.
Oh, okay. There you go.
We'll not see Jeffrey. Deshaun Jackson's to play, and I expect Lane Johnson's going to play as well. So they're getting a little healthier, but as you said, Dave, still pretty beat up at left ankle. Jordan Mailata is still going to be the guy on the blind side, and who knows if Johnson can even make it through the game because he played last week and then had to bow out and try to come in, and that ankle wouldn't work for him. So they're a little healthier, but they're not a healthy team.
That's pretty big news on Alshon Jeffrey, even though, look, I mean, that's a big body guy that, look, they have JJ, how do you pronounce his last name?
Arcega-Whiteside.
Right, who
done very little for them.
Done very little. They also had the kid who, Fulgham or whatnot, who had the big touchdown last week against the 49ers. Obviously, Deshaun Jackson, if he's 100%, it really opens up that offense. But even before him, looking at the tape with him, seen a lot of out routes from him. I think Father Time, at least what I saw early in the season, has kind of gained a step on Deshaun. And if he's not able to open things up a little bit and get on top of some things, that kind of limits this Eagles offense on top of, because Wentz is not going to have a lot of time to stay back there and wait for someone to get open down the field here. So this is going to be offensively, at least, well, really defensively too. This is going to be still a banged up team overall for the Eagles. Yeah,
absolutely. At receiver, it'll be Jackson. It'll be, I think, Greg Ward is a pretty exciting guy, and he's done relatively well for them. But, really their pass game's going to go through the tight ends with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, and a little bit of the backs with Miles Sanders and guys like that. So, yeah, again, they are a healthier team, but they are not by any means a healthy team.
Yes, sir.
All right, Dave. I think we touched on Keith Butler, Randy Fichtner. Since we're talking Eagles, might as well just jump into some Eagles talk, right, and kind of go over the scouting report for them this weekend.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, so sticking with the Eagles offense, since we just touched on it, again, starting with Carson Wentz, who by no means has played well this season, but he certainly had a lot of injuries around him. I'm just impressed overall. I focus more on the scheme aspect of things for the scouting reports. I still think they have a really solid scheme. Their run game is as diverse as almost any run game in football, maybe save versus the 49ers or the Chiefs a little bit. And they still have some weapons at tight end, like I said, with Ertz and Goddard. So I don't want to take this team lightly, even though this offense has struggled mightily through the first month of the season.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think you got to go into this first and foremost with Miles Sanders. Don't let that guy kill you. Whether it be running the football or out of back, he's a better pass catcher out of the backfield than what I gave him credit for initially. So he is a weapon in that area for him. But first and foremost, with the way they like to. They run the gamut like most teams as far as blocking schemes go, and try to get them on the edge sometimes as well too. And they'll obviously use Wentz in some read option type looks, which I'm not a fan of. I think circle back to what Keith Butler had kind of said. If you get a situation where Wentz taking off with a football, try to get a hit in on him, kind of thing. I remember going back to his rookie season. He's a little bit reckless at times with some of his decisions on that, not getting himself out of bounds and taking some unnecessary hits when it comes to that. But yeah, I think you concentrate on stopping the run early, making sure you properly account for Miles Sanders out of the backfield there, and try to get them obviously into some of those third down situations where Wentz has to make some plays, and maybe particularly to someone not named Zach Ertz. I think that's where it starts.
Yeah, and definitely let your pass rush eat on third down. But yeah, just go with the run game. I mean, they run stuff that most teams won't run. They run as much wham as any team. The Patriots used to be the team that ran a ton of wham, which is a fullback, or in this case with the Eagles, a tight end that will kind of earhole a 3-tech or a 1-tech, and they'll do that early. They do that on the first or second play of the game, one of their first runs, to try to get that defensive lineman worried about getting earholed the rest of the game. It slows him up, kind of really is a good counter to penetrating, attacking defenses like what the Steelers certainly are capable of employing. So watch out for that. They'll run bash, which is a backside sweep away from guards pulling. They'll run the read option with Carson Wentz. They're getting Jalen Hurts involved, the second-round pick. He's got 5 carries in the last two weeks. They're using him in some gadget-type situations and getting him in some kind of wildcat-ish type moments. I mean, they ran a toss play to him last week and tried to throw it back to Carson Wentz, so it didn't work. Hurts had to pull down the football and ran for 4 yards. But they're getting really creative in the run game. It's a really diverse scheme. The goal is to get their lineman, Kelsey, a really good center, to the second level. So I do not want to take that Eagles run game lightly, despite the Steelers having a great run defense, because they're going to see a run scheme they haven't seen this season. It's a really sound concept for Peterson and company.
Yeah, I like the way they run some of that misdirection stuff. I think they do. Look, I mean, Doug Peterson is known for being an offensive mind, right? So they're going to get a lot more creative. And look, I mean, even though Wentz hasn't been great with the deep ball, I mean, we did see that. I mean, it was a difference maker in that game against the 49ers,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Wentz is still definitely a threat, and he's a tough dude. He's taken some shots. He's been sacked almost as much as any quarterback this season. But in the pass game, I mean, yeah, it goes through Ertz and Goddard, and Greg Ward, I think, has played well. And if they get Deshaun Jackson, that'll help stretch the field vertically. And yeah, I think conceptually they're strong and sound with their scheme here. They run sail a lot, which is a 3-man combination of a clear out vertical route, a corner route, and a flat route. And Denver really killed Pittsburgh with those sail concepts. Noah Fant had the touchdown on it. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. He had another 20-yard catch later in the game on that sail concept. And so that's a very popular one. I think the Eagles are going to see, especially watching that Denver tape and seeing that the Steelers really kind of put themselves in a tough situation defending that. And I think we'll see the Eagles try to stress them again with that sail concept.
And I kind of noted in film analysis as well too on Twitter about you got to think that they might try to test the Steelers secondary and maybe some of them zombie calls.
Yeah, I have an interesting note for the Eagles, because the Eagles play it the same way defensively as the Steelers played, and I think the Steelers need to exploit that to the Eagles' detriment this time. But yeah, I think that the Eagles certainly have a good scheme. They have some weapons. They're getting healthier. And again, I know this offense has not been very good, but I think it's going to be better this week against Pittsburgh.
Let's see, what else do they do offensively that has stuck out? We saw one of the things that stuck out with Jackson on the tape was were those out-breaking routes with him down the field. I think that's been some of their bigger plays. I think you want to kind of Carson Wentz throwing to the middle of the field will tend to force some things, I think, at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And if you can get pressure, tape a pass, I mean, something like that can work. This offense, again, is 26 points per game. They've only scored more than 20 in 2 of their 4 games. They haven't scored more than 25 in a game. I mean, again, I think they do some really interesting things conceptually on offense. The health and the personnel has not been there. So if the Steelers can just be smart, read their keys, process well, not get fooled by that misdirection, they should be able to do well. But the Eagles, I think, are going to test them throughout a full 60 minutes.
You know, when the last time these two teams got together, I think was it Wentz's rookie season, I think, right? And I think we went into that game thinking, oh man, this is going to be probably a cakewalk. One of the things I remember about that game, I think specifically, other than getting the ball to Darren Sproles out of the backfield, and I think the Steelers getting killed by some running back screens in that game was the fact that Wentz, I think, got the ball out quickly on a lot of kind of quick slants and stuff like that, if I remember correctly. I don't remember him necessarily killing the Steelers deep in that game. It was a lot of quick stuff, if I remember correctly. And I think that the last thing Doug Peterson wants to do, especially with the shape of this offensive line, is to have Wentz back there holding the football, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they want to get the ball out quick. It's going to be hard to establish a deep ball and 7-step drops if this pass rush for the Steelers gets home, which I imagine they will. Again, Bud Dupree on Jordan Mailata should be a really good matchup, and we'll see how healthy Lane Johnson is on the right side for TJ Watt. So, the Steelers pass rush should be able to continue to have their early season success against the Eagles offensive line this weekend.
And obviously, 4 years since that game took place, the Steelers were playing a lot more zone back there now. I mean, Wentz can be Wentz isn't Lamar Jackson. Wentz isn't Deshaun Watson. He will take off with the football, but I'm less worried about that in man situations than I would be some of those other guys there. So I think obviously they're going to mix in some zone and all like that, but I want to see them play a lot more, man heavy, which they obviously have been doing a lot more of this season, and I think that'll help limit some of that stuff that we saw the Eagles offense beat the Steelers defense with 4 years ago.
I think he's pretty similar to Watson in terms of the mobility overall, and they love to move in the pocket too. They'll run a lot of boots. They'll get Wentz on the move, even to the left, but definitely to the right. So his throwing side. So I think he's kind of on that same level. So there's a loud train. We'll see if they have to play more zone and man against Carson Wentz.
Well, here's the thing: they had to kind of prepare for that for their game against the Broncos anyway, right? So with the quarterback, not a moving pocket, if you will. So there have been some elements of that they've already had to prepare for.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to prepare for it most of the season because more and more quarterbacks in the NFL are mobile. That's where the college game is. That's where the NFL game eventually trickles up to. And obviously your AFC North is Baker, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, all quarterbacks who can move. So this is not going to be anything new or a one-off thing for Pittsburgh this season.
Did you mentioned how they mix in a little bit of Hurts, right?
Yeah. He's played more the last 2 weeks, 5 carries, some quarterback stuff where he's I wouldn't call it the wildcat quarterback, but the quarterback in the game. Some stuff where Carson Wentz threw a toss play to him. They tried to throw it back to Carson Wentz. So number 2, Jalen Hurts is the guy that they're incorporating in some specialty situations and definitely something on tape the Steelers have to worry about.
All right,
the Eagles defense. I think it starts with that front four. I think we talked about that on Wednesday's show with Dave Sperato. And, I mean, they have a great pass rush. They got 17 sacks. That's number 1 in football. Only team that has more sacks than the Pittsburgh Steelers. They got 13 different guys with at least half a sack, 8 guys with 1 full sack. Malik Jackson only has half a sack but leads the team with 9 quarterback hits. They got 10 defensive linemen who have played at least 15 snaps this season. A good rotation. A lot of athletes, they penetrate, they get after it. It's as how you can clearly, the way I'm praising them, it is a very potent bunch up front for the Philadelphia Eagles.
This will be a good test for the Steelers offensive line in this one because this is a unit that can definitely get after the quarterback with just 4 people, and I don't remember seeing them blitz much of anything. I think they'll occasionally send a corner. At times, they will give you the illusion, I think, of some 5-man pressures at times, and then drop out of it at all. But I mean, they're a 4-man rush team. They will rotate those pieces up. I mean, look, Josh Sweat. I mean, he's a bit impressive on tape, right?
Yeah, little Dupree, he had 4 career sacks his first 2 years, former first-round pick, I believe, and has 3 sacks already this season, tied with a team lead with Brandon Graham. So he's been very good this year. I
think they do a good job of rotating those guys in. Obviously, we know all about – look, Javon Hargrave's just kind of hitting his stride, I think. And one of the key matchups, I hate to keep going back to this, but it always sticks in my head when these two teams have played is the whole David DeCastro thing. Obviously both guys have gotten older now, but Fletcher Cox has always kind of seemed to be DeCastro kryptonite, if you will. Him and Geno Atkins, kind of those kind of guys. It could be interesting to watch that matchup, and then obviously Chikwama Okorafor, that matchup over there on his side. Well, I mean Barnett and Villanueva. This is going to be a good test for the Steelers tackles, and as I stated, the offensive line or offensive line as a whole. From left to right, because this defense is a penetrating one, pretty decent against the run, and obviously can get out after the pass. You don't want to get Ben back there in obvious passing down situations.
Yeah, and I think empty is something that's tricky to run against the Eagles, because whenever you go empty, the Eagles will dial up the pressure, they'll dial up the disguises and mugging guys, and so that's going to be a concern. Maybe you don't want to go as much empty this week against this Eagles team.
Secondary-wise, though, that's where they're probably going to run into some issues.
For sure, Dave. Yeah, I think the defensive line is the strength of this team, and everything else behind it is pretty questionable. Linebacker and secondary, the injuries in the secondary, as you said. And, I think if there's anything you can exploit, the pass game is certainly where you can exploit it. And I think you can get some deep shots on this team because it is not the strength of this unit.
Right, and they're probably going to have to play a lot of man, I would think, right?
Yeah, we talked about that with Dave when we was asking, are they going to play more man, more zone? Probably more man coverage for sure. But, it's hard to know exactly what their personality is going to be, because if they play man, I don't know if they have the personnel to match up against the Steelers.
I think the general consensus for them seems to be that Darius Slay is going to work a lot against Juju, right? And did you see him move around a lot? I didn't focus in on Slay as much defensively.
Yeah, I didn't see him move too much, so I'm not sure how they're going to match that up. It'll be interesting because if you move Slay, then you're going to move some of the other young corners potentially, and so can those guys be ready to adapt and play different spots or not? So not sure how they're going to match up. But as I mentioned earlier with that zombie call, the Steelers run where they will versus a post-over combination where the safety will cut the over route and the cornerback has to replace to become the free safety. The Eagles do that the way the Steelers do. So maybe the Steelers can give Philadelphia a taste of the medicine they took against the Giants and try to hit a play on that. I think that would be a solid concept to try to exploit the Philadelphia Eagles against.
Vontae Maddox obviously missing his big Nickel Roby Coleman. I mean, look, he's been around the league for a while, but I've always viewed him more as a better slot guy, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is he starting on the outside for them right now? I don't know where they're at with some of these injuries.
I don't know where they're at because I think McLeod's going to play, but he's obviously playing some safety, right? Riley seems ripe for the picking.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly a group that has struggled. They only have 2 interceptions this year, despite playing some pretty mediocre quarterback play overall.
And one was just an ugly pass by
but by Mullins, right, last week. Or was it Beathard, one of the two?
That who was it? Gary? Was it Nathan Gary that got one? I forget which, or Singleton. I forget which one got.
Yeah, it was Singleton at the pick six, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's right. It was Singleton.
But speaking of Gary, he's one of the worst players on the field. I mean, every team attacks Nate Gary, and I think the tight ends for Pittsburgh can really find success this week.
I agree, and that goes back to me talking about them if they're playing a lot of man coverage in this thing. You get a guy like McFarland or somebody out of the backfield, or Ebron, or you get some of these guys, some of their bigger players singled up here. That's a huge mismatch. Ebron on the over, This could be the biggest game for Ebron. And look, even on top of that, if you're going to run some of these 2 tight end sets and all on top of it, as we talked kind of earlier in the show, McDonald can still get open. So I mean, this could be one of those 3 for 46 and a touchdown games for McDonald. You pay too much attention to some of these other guys here. But I think this sets up good. I'm just itching to see the will run with McFarland, man. If you can get him, we've seen other teams already try to attack the Steelers with that. It would be nice to see it go the other way here.
Yeah, this could be that one reader who had the question a couple weeks ago about the Mick game. This could be a McLeod, McFarland, McDonald type game where all those guys might be in position to succeed. But yeah, the Eagles against tight ends, I think, have allowed 5 touchdowns in 4 games, including Tyler Higbee having 3 a couple weeks back for the Rams. Kittle, 15, $1.83, and a touchdown, I think, last week. And Logan Thomas for Washington week 1, I think, had 3 catches, 47 yards, and a touchdown. So I think Eric Ebron could have a really nice week.
I agree.
And then, conceptually, what else did I have here for the Eagles? I don't have my report pulled up, but they don't blitz a whole lot, but they will bring some nickel corner and field side linebacker blitzes, so watch out for that. They will be selective with their pressure. They can bring everybody. I mean, they'll bring the boundary corner, they'll bring the field nickel corner and linebacker. They just don't do it a whole lot. They are pretty selective about it. So I don't want to say that they won't blitz or can't get aggressive. They're just more picky and choosy about it than, say, Keith Butler and the Steelers.
The other thing, talking about Ben getting the ball out quickly at times, and maybe specifically in this game with that pass rush, this could be one of those games too where James Conner has 6 catches for 70-something yards. We have seen games in the past with James Conner being used out of the backfield and break a tackle or two. And I think this linebacking core, will give him an opportunity to do that. So, we talked about the tight ends. If they want to pick their poison and pay, which they obviously should, and pay a lot of attention to the Steelers wide receiver, I think we could at the end of this thing look at the leading yardage receiver being the Ebron, or maybe being James Conner if he can get loose on one of these. So, and I think the middle of the field will be open for both those guys to do that as well too.
Sure, Conner on some of those option routes against a Nate Gary, for example, could be a really good matchup. The last thing I will say about the Eagles defense in terms of their run defense, while the numbers look good, I consider them a very fast flow defense where it's hard to run the ball in the perimeter to the front side against them because they're aggressive. They slant, the linebackers flow hard. It's hard to get the ball to the outside on the front side, but they are an over-aggressive unit. They will overplay things, and they will allow the cutback lane. And so a reader bouncing off that point on my scouting report today, I'll give him credit. St. Troy 43 said we might see the toss counter from the Steelers a couple times that they ran against the Patriots with Jalen Samuels his rookie year, for example, where you start the runway, but you immediately bring it back. I think that's a good way to counter how aggressive this Eagles team can be, especially with their linebackers that want to get to the front side, keep the ball from bouncing front side, but that can allow the cutback lane quite a bit.
Right.
And then in the special teams category too, Cameron Johnson, their punter, is like third, I think, in net average and overall gross average. And so they're doing a good job of flipping the field. And obviously the Steelers have struggled in the punt game so far. So in a battle of field position, I would say the Eagles probably have an edge coming into this one.
Yeah, but they are. Yeah, and talking about special teams, Ford, they had to. We talked about it. They had to place them on IR. That's missing one of their special teamers. One of those guys was a linebacker. I don't know how much that linebacker was playing on special teams there as well too. So, going to be interesting to see the impact. And obviously, we talked about Watt and Marcus Allen. So, hold your breath.
Yeah, should be interesting. All right, Dave. I think that'll wrap up our Eagles discussion right now. Let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie, unless I'm missing something to talk about, and then we can get into our Week 5 picks.
Winning season returns at MyBookie. Winning season means doubling your first deposit. Winning season means insane props, epic bonuses, and the craziest cross-sport wagers. At MyBookie, winning season means watching live sports and betting live sports all season long. It's like Mike Tomlin. We do not care. Rejoice, the NFL has returned. That means action-packed Sundays and huge cash prizes. Get in on the action. Use promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible. And double your first deposit. New players get up to $1,000 in free play designed to add more excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet. Bet with the best this NFL season and your chance to win big. Use promo code TERRIBLE and double your first deposit today. Your winning season begins today, only at MyBookie. That's mybookie.ag. All right, let's get into picking some of these games this week.
Yeah, and you won the Thursday night game. I picked the Bucs. You picked the Bears, and the Bears hung on to, really came back to beat Tom Brady, who did not realize it was fourth down. That was a fun moment last night.
That was an interesting. That was overall not a bad game. It was a physical game. A lot of penalties in that game, though. Overall physical game, and kind of we saw the Buccaneers pull the Steelers there. Get out to a 13-0 lead that we thought, that people probably thought should have been 21 or 24 to nothing. It felt like at the beginning of that thing. And Nick Foles gets Tom Brady again. All right, moving into the rest of the Week 5 games here. The Carolina Panthers, Alex, at the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons favored by 1.5 at home. What say you?
I've been picking the Falcons every week. My upset of the week did not go as planned against the Packers last Sunday, or whenever it was, Monday, whenever the game was played. I'm going to go Carolina on this one because Atlanta has burned me too much.
I'm going to use your own fears against you. I think the Falcons win this. I think they win it by a late field goal. So give me the Atlanta Falcons, lay the 1.5 here. Las Vegas Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. Wow, 12 points. The Raiders. What Raiders team's going to show up here? Kansas City Chiefs at home, laying 12 against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, it's a pretty big line, but it's harder not to go with Kansas City at this point. Do the Raiders cover? I'll stick my neck out and say the Raiders cover.
I think Kansas City buries them in this game. So I know it's a big line, but give me the Chiefs lay to 12 points here. The Los Angeles Rams go on the road to play the Washington football team, who just benched their young quarterback there, and I guess Steeler fans are already calling for him to be traded to the team. Oh man, they just love those shiny object quarterbacks. Rams or Washington at home. Plus 7.5 against the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Allen's starting. I know he knows Ron Rivera, knows the scheme well, but there just is not a lot of talent there outside of Scary Terry. Go ahead and give me the Rams on this one.
Yeah, give me the Rams on the road to lay to 7.5 as well, too. Just too much there. Jacksonville Jaguars, Houston Texans, new coaching staff. Will it matter? Will it fire them up? The Jaguars on the road play the Texans. The Texans favored by 5.5. Do the Texans get their first win, and do the Texans cover?
I think the answer to both those questions is yes. Romeo Crennel taking over. I think usually you see those teams fired up. Obviously, tensions were reaching ahead with Bill O'Brien. It was not in a good environment. So I do think the Texans win by a touchdown in this game.
I'm with you. I'll take the Texans to win, and I'll take the Texans to cover that 5.5 points. The Arizona Cardinals on the road against the New York Jets. We'll have to see what happens with this game now with this COVID issue and all like that. Right now, the Jets plus 7.5 at home.
Yeah, let's hope it's a false positive like what happened last week between the Saints and the Lions, and this game can go as planned, as scheduled. Travel is going to be an issue. When can the Cardinals fly out? Either way, though, long story short, the Jets are a mess. They continue to be a mess. Adam Gase is dead man walking. Give me the Cardinals.
Give me the Jets to lose this but cover, assuming this game goes off. So I like this to be a 3 or 4 point game. I have too much faith maybe in the Jets in some of these coverage situations. I think they get the cover here. Miami Dolphins on the road against the 49ers. 49ers at home laying 9.
Yeah, they're just so beat up. I don't know is Garoppolo playing this week? I don't think he is, but I don't know for sure. Do we know on that?
I don't think we know for sure.
Yeah. Give me the Dolphins to cover this one. I'm still impressed with the 49ers, but I mean, there's a point where you have so many injuries that you can only do so much with it. So Dolphins cover.
Let's look and see what the injury report for them.
And then if he's not ready, is it going to be Beathard or is it going to be Mullins?
17 hours ago, it seems like it's trending to people thinking that Jimmy G might go.
Oh, yeah, I'm just seeing 13 minutes ago, Kyle Shanahan, Garoppolo likely to return Sunday. I'll stick with the Dolphins, though. Just I'll lock that one in.
I'll take Jimmy. I'll take Jimmy at home, lay the 9. New York Giants on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys favored by 8.5, and news breaking this morning that Tyron Smith is out for the season due to neck injury that will require surgery next week.
They're playing the Giants, you said, right?
Right, Giants.
Man. Any other team, I would probably go against the Cowboys. I mean, I feel so bad for Dak. He's playing so well. There's so many injuries around him. That defense is atrocious. If that Giants offense posed any threat to anybody, I would go with the Giants in this one, but I got to go with Dallas.
Jason Garrett gets his revenge this week, but I mean, not really. He gets it in a cover sense. All right. Cowboys win, Giants cover. Give me that 8.5 points, Alex. Colts, man, that defense of the Colts is this should be a fun game to watch. 4:25 kickoff on this one. Colts at the Browns. Pick 'em. It's a pick 'em. So pick 'em.
Straight up pick 'em. Yeah. The Colts have the best defense in football, only allowing 14 points per game. The Browns' run game has been excellent, although they are without Nick Chubb. Who do I want to go with here? Give me the Browns. They've been impressive, that run game, even without Nick Chubb. Bill Callahan's been such a huge addition for them. They got Kareem Hunt still. I'm going to go Cleveland on this one.
I like what the Browns have done so far offensively. I don't know if it's going to be enough in this game, though. You got to have some good defensive play here. I like the Colts straight up here.
All right, fair enough.
Let's see. I'm trying to look at the injury report here.
For what, the Browns?
Yeah. They put Chubb on. I'm trying to look. Okay. I'll go with the Colts on this. Pick them. Minnesota Vikings on the road against the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle laying 7.5 at home against Minnesota, who I think I got that one right last week, right? Got them a win.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Seattle at home with that offense. Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf's really come on strong this year. Tyler Lockett remains criminally underrated. I know Dalvin Cook's running well, but Kirk Cousins cannot keep up with Russ in his cooking. So give me Seattle.
You know what? I like Seattle to win this, but once again, give me the road to cover here, plus the 7.5 points here. That brings us to where are we going here? What is the? We've had some things moved around, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Chargers at the Saints. The Saints minus 7.5 at home.
Yeah, Chargers going full-time with Justin Herbert, rightfully so, although they are without running back Austin Eckler. Michael Thomas, I think he's going to play this week. I don't know. He probably won't be at 100%. I'm going to say the Chargers cover, although the Saints win.
Give me the Saints at home to against the rookie quarterback here to cover this one. I think the Saints put up some points in this one, so lay the 7.5 there. I guess the Tennessee game's off the board still. That would make sense. The Tennessee and the Bills off the board, so we will pick that one whenever it goes back on the board, and then add it hopefully in our picks when they're posted on the site on Sunday. So I guess that leaves us with the Steelers versus the Eagles, right? Eagles coming to Heinz Field. There'll be some fans at this one. This one's been locked in at 7 all week. It's at there right now. Steelers at home laying 7.
Yeah, 5,500 fans expected at Heinz Field this weekend. I think our own David O is going out there and will be in attendance, so we'll get the perspective from him later in the week. I'm going to go with the Steelers in this one. Won't bury the lead, 27-21 over the Eagles. I think it will be a fairly close competitive game, but the Eagles are still health-wise a mess. The Steelers pass rush is in a much better position to succeed than the Eagles pass rush is, because the Steelers O-line has protected Ben a whole lot better than the Eagles have protected Carson Wentz. And I think maybe a little bit of a chip on the shoulder of the Steelers team as well, kind of just getting that short end of the stick that Ben referred to. So just a healthier team, a better team in the secondary, a stronger pass rush overall, and I think it's enough to get them a 6-point victory.
What'd you have the score at?
27-21 Steelers.
Ooh. What scares you the most about the Eagles in this game?
Schematically, offensively, their misdirection, especially in the run game, but also in the pass game. I do think they are a really strong scheme team that exploits weaknesses and can deal with penetrating aggressive defenses like what the Steelers have. So that might be the biggest fear. Plus, again, that defensive line, of course, for the Eagles is very potent, and they can definitely get after the quarterback.
Yeah, look, I understand why this is 7 points. I understand that the Eagles' defense is something to pass rush is something to look for here. I'm not so much concerned about that offense overall. And with the time off, I think it's really going to bode in favor of the Steelers here. Obviously at Heinz Field, and some fans going to make a difference as well too. Do they hit 30? I think that's one of the big things here. I'm looking for some sort of streak to end here. Is it going to be the first possession streak and a touchdown? Is it going to be the 30 streak? I'm going to go with the first possession streak coming to an end here. And within that, I think they jump on them. I like this Steelers 27-13. I like a big win here.
Big win.
I like a big win here. 27-13 Steelers, and that obviously means I think they're going to cover.
All right, so we both have 27 for the Steelers. You just have a bigger margin of victory for the black and gold.
A victory.
Oh, my goodness. I can't talk today. All right, Dave, so that wraps up our Week 5 picks. Let's get to some reader emails and close out the show.
All right, let's do that, and we shall start with, let's see here, if I can find it. Friday AM question from Henry Lane. Love the podcast. Simple question, but do we have any idea when color rush jerseys and or block jerseys will be worn? Usually announced before the season, but I can't find anything about the Steelers uniform schedule. Henry Lane. Henry, I don't think we know yet. I think they're kind of waiting. Waiting to see what's going to happen when fans might be there and all like that. I don't think we have dates on that yet, right?
I can check the site if we've written anything about it. I don't believe, though. Nothing comes to mind about when they've announced that stuff. Let me see if the site has any article. No, nothing since February about color rush stuff, so I don't think it has been announced yet.
Yeah, I would look for that to obviously be a home game and, I don't know, maybe a division rival or something like that. Kind of thing, but keep tuned to SteelersDepot.com. We'll update you whenever word on something like that comes out there. Let's see. Colin Finnegan writes in, moving Minka around versus the Eagles. Colin from Western Massachusetts here. My question is, do you think there's a chance that Minka's main task this week is covering Ertz? Normally, I would say this is highly unlikely, but with Bush's struggles, I could see it considering he's just about Philly's only weapon right now in the pass game. I still don't expect it, but I think it's worth at least some thought. Keep up the good work, guys. Been a religious listener since the summer when I discovered it. All right, thanks, Colin, for catching on with us there. Personally, I think you'll see a little bit of everything there. I think they'll continue to roll Minka around. I don't think he'll specifically be on Ertz throughout this game. I think there will be instances when you'll see Bush on Ertz in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there will be an all hands on deck approach of slowing down a guy like him, some of Bush, some of Edmonds, some of Minka. Again, I think there will be a decent amount of zone play because Wentz is a threat to run. So vision on the football is going to be important. So maybe in some situations you will see Minka match up on Ertz. I definitely see the point there, Colin, and I agree with it. And they are trying to move Minka closer to line of scrimmage and some more hook zones and robber stuff and things like that. So he's not going to be playing as much in center field. But with Deshaun Jackson back there, he maybe want to have him out there to protect against a deep ball because that is going to be a concern with D-Jax back in the lineup.
Right. Let's see. What else do we have here?
Anything else? Any other emails?
I'm looking.
A little quieter this week, just coming off the bye and just kind of waiting.
Here's one from Brett, the tackle position. Hey, Dave and Alex. Obviously, there's been a few changes since beginning of the year as far as the tackle position goes. When Banner won the starting spot, it looked like the position could be decimated in the offseason. Now with the Banner injury and likely re-signing the performance of Okorafor so far and the emergence of Dotson as a comfortable option to guard next year, it's looking a lot less dire. You also have Hawkins looking like he might be potential depth option that you can sign for the minimum. The way I see it, it's now coming down to a choice between Filer and Big Al. Now it's possible that they keep neither. But do you agree with me that it is one or the other, not both? I think I've been in the category that's probably going to be neither for a while, haven't I?
Yeah, you have. I'm still hopeful, optimistic, might be a touch strong about one of those guys resigning. I pointed to Filer a little bit more than Villanueva just because he'll be cheaper. To answer the question, though, yeah, I mean, I do feel a little bit better about the situation because the core four has played well, and you think Banner can come back, and we'll have to see how he would look coming off that ACL. Hopefully he can bounce back, and I imagine that he will. But, yeah, if you could, again, my ideal scenario, or the best scenario I think that's realistic is you re-sign Filer, a core four flips to left tackle, Filer might kick back out to right tackle, Dotson moves into left guard, and that's kind of how you move this offensive line around heading into 2021. So, yeah, I think it is a better place right now than it was a few weeks ago and before the season started in terms of the 2021 offensive line outlook.
You know, I don't think either of them come back, and I really have not. I hate to lose both of them, obviously, but I don't. I like the chances of Big Al coming back more so than Filer, even at Big Al's
Really?
age and all.
And price tag, though. He's going to cost more.
Yeah.
It's going to cost more than Filer.
Well,
I think it's significantly more.
Right, but I don't think, if you want to talk about which one do I think is more likely to happen, I still think it's Big Al, and I don't think either of them is coming back. So.
Is there any reason why you think it's Villanueva over Filer in terms of
I just positionally,
the likelihood?
Positionally, I think you'd much rather have your starting left tackle back than you would a guy that's tackle / guard who, he's giving you good snaps at right tackle, but with Dotson in the fold now, and I think they're going to extend DeCastro, yada yada. I just think Filer just becomes the odd man out. Okay, and I don't think once again, I don't think either one of these guys will be back. But if one is back, I think it's Big Al.
So you think, let's assume that neither return, then what is kind of your rough front five for week 1 next year? I mean, a core 4, does he flip to left tackle then, assuming Villanueva's gone?
I think,
or do you draft somebody?
I think I think you're obviously going to draft somebody regardless.
Oh, sure.
But I think there's a decent chance in a core 4. I think it could be. I think it, and Banner's injury, as unfortunate it is, gives him a much better chance of returning now. So I think there's a possibility of it being a core 4. Obviously, there's going to be a rookie maybe involved in this, but maybe not week 1. Sure. So a core 4, Dotson, Pouncey, DeCastro, maybe Banner
/ rookie. Probably.
/ rookie.
Competing.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. I buy that.
But I mean, once again, put me down for mostly thinking that neither one of those guys likely to be back.
Fair enough. Good question.
Let's see. Did we get this? Yeah, we got this one from Scotland. All right. I think we're caught up here, Alex. Yeah, I think we're most definitely caught up here with the email. So, in the meantime, you got anything else to add going into this one? Obviously, we'll be back on Monday recapping this game, talking about what else has transpired around the league here. Anything else you'd like to leave us with here?
Nope, I think that's everything. We will be back on Monday. Glad that Steelers football is back, hopefully talking about a 4-0 Steelers team, but we'll recap the win regardless of result and talk to you guys on Monday.
And I got a sneeze I'm trying to get to, but I can't. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, go to the site, hit the ad-free button. For $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. That's been very, 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 very popular with our site users and all like that. Make sure you write down your username and your password that you create when you get that ad-free version, because you will need to log in with that as well too after registering there. So in the meantime, let's see. Send your emails to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for listening to The Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.